Real estate agents, this video is a masterclass in how to get more clients as a real estate agent using social media. If you don't know me, my name is Cole Jarvis. I've spent the past 5 to 3 years running a social media marketing business that helps real estate agents see massive growth. We've acquired hundreds of thousands of followers for agents, millions and millions of views and impressions with real buyers or sellers in their market. And we've helped them generate thousands of leads just in the past few months with the clients that we work with. And from across all of that, these are the best things that I've seen, the most important things, and of course, the things I see a lot of real estate agents doing wrong and misunderstanding about social media. So this video is supposed to be a deep dive into everything that I know and that I've learned in the industry, including also my years before that working at Facebook in content moderation and working at TikTok in content moderation and at a Coldwell Banker brokerage out in Los Angeles. So all of this is distilled into helping you understand how to get more clients as a real estate agent, as I've seen it over my years and years of experience in this exact field. So I'm going to break this down into 3 sections for you to understand. One is just getting started and outlining what success looks like. 2 is the content creation process and what exactly you need to know about this and, of course, the misunderstandings. And then 3, most importantly, your overall strategy, how everything comes together to really get you the right kinds of leads that builds a great relationship with your audience and that capitalizes on what social media is actually meant for, so that you can stop putting stuff out there and just not seeing it work and feeling like you're wasting time, and instead develop a smart strategy that you know the results of which are going to actually grow your real estate business, not just get you, maybe a bunch of views, but no actual real results from it. So number 1 is getting started. So what's really important about getting started is what a lot of people don't understand is that you need to define what you want to achieve with your social media marketing. And I say that because if we just want to simply achieve getting more leads for our business, then that's actually a very different path. What I'm really talking about in this video is how we get more clients as a real estate agent and see really strong fundamental growth. Because if we just simply want to get more leads, then we're really going to want to look at, just advertising, right? If you want to get leads the fastest way possible, it's ads, right? And there's a whole nother video I have about stuff like this that I'd recommend you go check out. It really goes into all the different things that we dive into when we run lead campaigns for real estate agents. But this is the fastest way, right? The fastest way to get leads, is really just running ads. That's really what it is, okay? Now, what's important is that a lot of people don't understand lead generation is not the only benefit of social media for real estate agents, and it's not even close to the most important one. Because honestly, with all the agents I've worked with, most agents, the vast majority, have no shortage of leads. What really, in a lot of cases, I talk with people who say, I need more leads, I need more leads, I need more leads. And I ask them, oh, cool, what does your database look like? And they say, well, I got like 14,000 people in this database. I'm like, okay, so do we really think 14,100 leads is going to suddenly change your business? Or is it more so that you really don't know how to work your leads, right? And a lot of us want to point at the lead generation problem and hire a bunch of companies to try and get us more leads. And by the way, a lot of companies will gladly take your money, get you leads, and then 4 or 5 months you'll realize, this isn't really for me, right? Like, this isn't actually helping my business, because it's not the actual problem. You usually don't have a lead problem. You have a lead sourcing problem, or working your leads, or you're having difficulty convincing your leads to use you as their agent. And that's what really social media can help with. And that comes down to building trust, which we'll talk about in just a second. But if we're getting started, we need to understand, do we just want to get fast leads and like work those leads to death? Or do we want to grow our business into something really, really powerful and a brand that has strength in the market and that can actually demand service or demand clients, instead of simply pushing out there and just hoping somebody bites, from the bait that we're putting out there? So if you want to get leads the fastest way, ads is definitely the thing to do. Now, also, if you want to go viral, then the really strategy there is just to make like TikToks and trend videos. Like you see like the ocean spray thing years ago where the guy was just drinking ocean spray riding down, some highway or whatever on a skateboard. Like, That's a trend. If you think about other trends that people are doing out there, a lot of real estate agents love to do like these flashy videos where like a drone's like flying through a mansion and like dodging everything, and they're just like showing off and running between the rooms. Very like Ryan Serhant-y with like, you know, some of his content, because a lot of his content is not like that. That will get you a lot of views. Okay, you can easily go, and when I say easily, I mean like after a couple tries, you know, and doing this consistently, you can get hundreds of thousands of views. And you can be like, okay, great, I got hundreds of thousands of views on TikTok by going viral, right? Which is fine if that's what your strategy is. The problem is a lot of people think I need to go viral and therefore I'll get a lot of business. And that is a suspension of logic. Going viral does not mean you're going to get more business. Getting a bunch of followers does not mean you're going to get more business. There are ways that those things can help you, but that does not ultimately solve the problem. And what a lot of real estate agents are doing is they're looking at content creators, people who are getting a ton of leads, a ton of views, a ton of followers, and getting millions of impressions on their videos because they're creating entertaining content. But what we don't understand is that their job is not to get to grow a real estate business in a local market. Their job is just to entertain and get as many views as possible and make ad revenue. And if that's what you want to do, that's totally cool. But you should understand that's a different strategy than using social media to actually grow your business. So, lastly, is how do we grow a brand? And that's really what the purpose of this video is based on. How do we use social media to grow a brand? And a brand is just an association, but we want people in our market to associate us with, the best person for the job, someone that they like, someone that they trust, so that when they end up making what is likely to be the biggest financial decision of their life, which is their purchase of a home, why would they go with anyone other than you, right? And so if we want to grow a brand, what's really important here is that this strategy involves creating content that is value driven. And we're going to dive into what exactly that looks like too, because a lot of people talk about value driven content and it's just a vague, ethereal kind of thing. So I want to talk about what that exactly means. We want to build the right audience, not the biggest audience. And this is because it doesn't help us to have a million people who are never going to buy a home in our market following us, right? Or watching our videos. That doesn't help you at all as a real estate agent. Instead, 1,000 people who are highly engaged, who are highly likely to buy or sell a home in the near future, that is a really powerful audience. How many clients, how many transactions do you need to dramatically change your business? I bet it's a lot less than 1,000, right? I bet if you had 10 extra transactions this quarter, you would see significant growth for your real estate business, at least for the vast majority of people watching this. And so, what we want to understand is that we want quality over quantity with our audience here. And lastly, it's really important to be totally honest with you. This is going to take time. It takes time for people to associate you, especially if you spent all this time kind of building your brand in the wrong way. It will take time to get people to associate you. One, remember you, so know you. The next one is actually like you. And then thirdly, which is trust you, right? That's a classic know, like, and trust, but it takes time to build this. So when we have, a lot of times, as a company that helps real estate agents make content and get seen by a lot of people in their market, a lot of times, we'll work with people and we do our best to vet this and to define expectations in the beginning. But every once in a while, we definitely get people who come in and they, after a couple, months or so of us creating, really great content that really targets a specific kind of avatar, posting to their pages for them, doing all this stuff, they say, hey, I don't have any new transactions yet. And it's flawed on multiple levels. One, we're building a brand, right? This will take time, okay? And that's why what we offer is not for everybody, okay? And a lot of people can do it themselves, which is what we're gonna show you how to do in this video, if you can't afford our services, which is totally cool. But it's gonna take time. And also, too, you have to think, like, the transaction life cycle is a long one. Even if you're looking to get the leads as fast as possible, it's going to take a while to nurture those leads. It's going to take a while to build that trust and to get the right kind of transaction for that person. Like, a lot of times what you're looking to accomplish is very difficult, not because it's unrealistic, but it's because it's unrealistic in the time frame that you're looking for. And we're talking about building a brand that will make your lead generation easier, that will make your client acquisition easier, that will make your transaction speed faster, and that will ultimately grow your business into a place where you can actually see fundamental growth without needing to chase after every single lead all the time. That's the kind of brand we're talking about building on social media, because that objectively is the most valuable one. The problem is a lot of people don't have the patience for it. And so when we're getting started, we need to outline what exactly our expectations are. And so again, if you're looking at just trying to get the fastest leads possible, then you're going to want to run ads, to be totally honest. If you're looking at going viral, then you're going to want to do TikTok trends or like trends on Reels or whatever that may be more that may just catch a lot of people's attention, get you a lot of views, and obviously no guarantee of business, because we're not even looking at trying to get in front of the people who are actually likely to buy or sell necessarily. But third, if you're trying to grow a powerful brand, it's going to help to catapult your business over the next few years, then that is what this video is really for. So what we need to do is understand that goal. Now, if your goal is to grow a brand, then keep watching. Now, you first thing you want to do when you start to grow a brand is you need to know your audience. And I was kind of alluding to this already, but it doesn't help us to get in front of 14-year-olds. It just doesn't, right? And I'm not talking about certain platforms more than others. I'll talk about the importance of being platform agnostic in this video. But more importantly, you need to be understanding of the kind of audience that's going to actually grow your business. And that doesn't mean just people looking to buy or sell within the next like month, right? Because there are a lot of issues with going after that kind of a market, which I'll talk about. But instead, it's just getting in front of the people who you can actually help. Like people who are in this space where they're maybe likely to buy or sell in the near future, or they already have a home and that they're probably going to upsize at some point with a growing family, or downsize with empty nesters, or whatever that might be. But you need to know your audience and identify the needs of your market. So when we know our audience, this is going to be important because it's going to tell us what kind of content we need to create, right? Like we're not going to create a bunch of content about like living on a coast and like the culture of like beach culture and like all that kind of stuff if like we're talking to people in Arkansas, right? Obviously there's a disconnect there. We need to understand our audience and what their needs are. So this is important to identify, and it's also an opportunity to niche down. If we're creating content for a specific audience and we say, maybe we just want to go after, growing families, or we just want to go after people who are downsizing. I work with a lot of people in more southern states who are looking at targeting, snowbirds. People who are going from states where there's a lot of snow and they want to go to a warmer climate. Or and also we have a client who sells like land specifically for like hunting, like hunting slash hunters. Whatever your audience is, it doesn't matter which one, but you need to identify what that audience is. And that will stop you from just making random content left and right and then just hoping it works, spraying and praying, essentially. You need to identify who you want to target. And it doesn't have to be this niche. It can just be like, hey, I'm just looking to help people in my market, this specific part of my market, this 15-mile radius, find the best home for them. Or maybe help them find homes through programs they might not know are available to them, like grants and things like that are provided by the state or the federal government or whatever it might be. But you need to identify to some degree what kind of audience you're targeting, because if you try to target just everybody, you're really going to end up having a difficult time, because guess who's trying to target everybody? Everyone is trying to target everybody. And so now you're putting yourself in competition with everyone out there. And that's a very difficult place to be in. Instead, find your niche, and it doesn't have to be a hyper specific niche like people looking for hunting ground, right? You can target people who are looking to build some kind of just, a lifestyle for themselves, that involves buying a home. You can be pretty vague, but you just need to identify exactly what they look like and understand that the more niche you get, the less competition, but the smaller the audience. So you have to play around with that, and that's of course up to you. But that really is important because it really helps us get into the actual content creation process, which is a big part of section 2. Section 2 is the content creation process. Now, first and foremost, you need to stop thinking that you need all the best equipment possible. What's really funny about fancy equipment is guess what? A lot of times it doesn't work. I have a fancy DSLR camera mounted to my ceiling. Guess what I'm filming on? An iPhone. Because that camera would not work with my recording software. And like, yes, I'm running down an iPad here for like the visual element, but like at the end of the day, I really don't need that. I'm really just reliant on my phone. And by the way, my microphones also today were not working. It's something I have to troubleshoot, which takes time and effort. I kind of like that stuff because I'm nerdy like that. But a lot of times you're going to run into issues with high fancy tech. And also, it's a barrier to entry. So we always like to really preface here. I'm going to make this a little bit smaller. It'll be a little bit more legible. Is you need to start with what you have. You don't need a DSLR fancy camera. You don't need a perfect microphone. You don't need amazing sets or studios. What you can do is just start with your phone. Our phones are so good. This is it's insane how insane like how fast camera technology has improved over the past like 5-10 years. Like this phone looks amazing, so much so that you can see this gross ass mark that I got from the dermatologist because I had to burn something off my skin. In some cases, I wish it wouldn't work as well, but this is the world that we live in. My phone has an amazing camera, and it is going to create a high definition video that can live on any platform that I post to. And it was the easiest thing for me to just quickly turn on and start recording with. So, what really happens, I see this all the time. I work with people who say, "Oh man, like I really have to have the best tech. I really have to have the perfect, situation here with my studio or my lighting or whatever it might be." And I'll give you an example. I'm working with a real estate agent out in Florida who is out in Miami, who is has a really great brand and he's very conscious of it. And originally when we started working together, he was like, "Okay, great. Like, can you send me a list of recommended like equipment I can use? I really want some nice looking equipment." I said, "Okay, sure." So I sent him a bunch of equipment. After a couple weeks, I was like, "Hey, like, how's it going? Do you have any questions about the equipment?" He's like, "Oh, I haven't ordered it yet. Like, let me wait." Another couple weeks go by and nothing. So eventually I say, "Hey, like, we can really start with your phone. Like, set up your phone. We have some great software that lets us record remotely, and it's gonna, your phone is like an iPhone 15 or 16. Like, you're gonna be just fine." And so we record it, and it looks great. Like, it looks like 95% of the high quality content that goes out there, and he had no issues with it. But then in the middle of recording, he said, "Oh, you know what? But I really want to have, a higher tech thing. I really want to have a studio. I'll just send you some stuff with some higher equipment." So I'm like, "All right, sure." Another month has gone by. We sent him, a couple of videos that we ended up filming on his iPhone, and he had no issues with it. But then just the idea of like, "Oh, I need to have the best stuff. I need to have all of this." All of these essentially excuses just ultimately stops you from just doing the work. You just need to get started and start doing something and stop being worried about trying to make it perfect because at the end of the day, you're never going to make it perfect. You could buy a fancy DSLR camera and then in 2 months you'll be like, "Man, I really wish I had this other DSLR camera that was twice as expensive, or this better microphone, or my favorite, which is like, well, I have a really fancy microphone, and now I need to have a really fancy camera. Otherwise, there's a disconnect between the two, which just isn't true. People only care about content that is bringing them value, and the cool thing is that can happen on a crappy phone, a modern phone, which most of us have, which looks great, or on the fanciest piece of technology. The technology stuff really doesn't help you, and it helps you a lot less than waiting for months and months and months on end to get the perfect situation hurts you. That is much more of a negative than having great equipment is a positive. And so you need to start with just what you have. I talk with so many people about this. Like, if you just posted 100 videos of mediocre quality, you will get a lot farther from that than posting one video of amazing quality. Trust me, it's way more about showing up and just being consistent than it is about having the perfect 4K video display. So, obviously, you don't want to focus all your time and effort on getting the best equipment. You really want to focus on high quality content. Not high quality, not HD, I'll just say equipment. And my auto thing is going to think that I spelled something kind of fancy over here. You really want to focus on your high quality content, the message that you're actually saying to your audience, because that ultimately is how they're going to determine if you're actually providing value to their life, if it actually makes sense for them to work together. Because otherwise, it just really doesn't do anything for you. So I just recommend setting up an iPhone, just hitting play. If you want to be fancy, you can turn your iPhone and then just make sure you're relatively in frame, but even the front-facing, selfie style camera is going to be fantastic. Now, the next thing too is after, of course, you're spending time in the message, which we'll come back to a little bit more about the actual messaging, is the language here. And this happens all the time. You're a real estate agent. You spend 99% of your business day talking about real estate, talking to other real estate agents, looking at content from other real estate agents, looking at transaction stuff, looking at documents, looking at all of this stuff. And guess what happens? You will conform to a certain kind of business language that is complete gibberish to the average buyer or seller. So, what I mean by that is if you say, oh yeah, like, I really wanted to make sure that you get the best equity possible, or want to make sure that you have the best possible, like, even turnkey property, or I want to make sure that the MLS, that we're gonna come up on the MLS. I'm gonna give you access to the MLS and all this stuff so that you have access to looking at all these properties. These are all industry specific topics. And so you really want, when you're creating content, you want to stay away from industry specific topics and talking points, right? Because your audience, they're relying on you for education. You're not talking to a bunch of other real estate agents, or if you are like a broker and you're recruiting them, that's a different thing. But like for the vast majority of agents out there looking to get more people to follow their content and to ultimately build a level of trust with them, you need to approach them in a language that they will understand. As soon as they don't understand what you're talking about, they will lose interest and they will swipe away. And this is what happens. A lot of people make this fancy content, take a bunch of time and effort, but the language just isn't there. And ultimately, like, people just will become, it's not even that they're bored, and it's not even that your attention span is so much lower nowadays. That's what people like to say, is that, oh, we can't concentrate on more than anything for more than 2 seconds. And I completely disagree. Gary Vee has an amazing topic on this. If you don't know, Gary Vee is this really popular content creator, runs a marketing agency in the social media world, super popular guy. But Gary Vee's got this great thing, which is that he doesn't believe that the attention has decreased, that people just don't have any kind of level of attention to to longer form video or anything. It's just that you have so many more options as a content consumer. There's no incentive to stick around. There's no incentive to wait, because honestly, what happens is that when we swipe, we have like a 90 to 80% chance that we're going to get another video that's highly suited and customized to our interests. So we're highly incentivized to swipe because we know there's always another video coming up on YouTube Shorts or on Instagram or Facebook Reels or on TikTok that is going to be perfectly suited, algorithmically chosen based off of our interest and our consumer habits, that is so perfect for us. So you have to understand that, like, you spend a bunch of time making content that you think is perfect, but if you're not really thinking about it from the consumer's mindset and all of the other competition that you have, then you're really just living in a fantasy world. It's not that, wow, I made this video that talks about so many points, that talks about so much value. It's not about that at all. It's more about not total value, but value per second. And it's honestly something I'm really working on. I'm trying to find better ways to communicate the message that I'm trying to bring to real estate agents to help them improve their social media and to help them establish me as somebody who's credible, who knows what I'm talking about. And yes, I cite my experiences, and that's valuable and helpful. But at the end of the day, if I make videos that nobody ends up listening to or nobody watches because they don't understand what I'm talking about, or I'm not giving enough value every second that they're watching, that stops them from swiping away to something else, then I ultimately will not grow my brand nearly as much as if I fix those problems. So it's something that I'm working on now, and I'm trying to provide more value, higher value per second to my audience. And hopefully this video is helping to do that. But honestly, I won't know until I look at the data, which we'll talk about the importance of data in just a little bit. But our language is super important. So instead of saying equity, try and say like, you know, net worth or, you know, property value. Instead of turnkey, say, move in ready, you know? Um or and then obviously, instead of like the MLS, just say like, like our I don't know, our real estate program or, or system. My point though is that you need to understand that your audience that you're trying to get, if you're trying to get in front of buyers or sellers in your market, they don't speak your same language. You need to translate it for them, and you need to approach it in a way that's easy for them to understand. And a great way to do this is to try and think about, talking to a third grade audience. If you were, and Alex Hormozy's got some great stuff on this. He writes books and he makes sure that everything goes through a like a reading comprehension tool, which I guess there's plenty online that work. ChatGPT is a great way to do this, honestly, as well. But you can just put your content through that and say, hey, is this something that a third grader would understand? And that helps because, as he says, one, higher intellect, let's say people who are more familiar with this language, they'll understand it if it's easier, if it's like lower than what their comprehension level is. But also the most people who are at that reading level, they'll definitely understand it because it's built for them. So by doing that, you just make sure that you don't alienate anybody in your audience by immediately jumping on and saying, hey, here's all these kinds of things and all this stuff. And by the way, another thing that real estate agents I see all do all the time is they'll say, hey, if you're ready to buy or sell what? We don't know. Think about it from the perspective of someone just swiping on their phone. They're swiping by and suddenly a video pops up and it says, hey, if you're looking to buy or sell, here are 3 things that are super important for you. They don't know what they're buying or selling. That could be a car. That could be a life insurance policy. That could be a boat. They don't know what you're talking about when you say buy or sell. You need to say, hey, this is how you can get more money for your house in upstate New York by selling with these 3 things in mind, or by doing these 3 things first. You need to really make things clear so that people understand what the context is, so you even have an opportunity to get in front of the right kind of an audience. So that's why language is so important. Now, next is you want to educate over entertain. And I talked about this before, but at the end of the day, this is not for people trying to be content creators. People trying to make a bunch of money from ad revenue, right? And I talked to a lot of people who are like, hey, like, it would be super cool if I could also just make some money on ad revenue. And like, yeah, it would be super cool. The problem is it's a different strategy. And the more you start to implement separate strategies and start to subdivide your attention and focus on 8 different things instead of 1 or 2 really important things, the less successful you will be in all of those, right? It's this funny mentality where, like, the sum of the parts is actually worth less than if you had just one part and you actually just focused all of your attention on that. And so, our big thing when we work with real estate agents is we want to find agents who are at a position where their business is growing enough that they really want to start investing in brand, but they're very busy servicing and providing great value to their agents or to their clients. And therefore, we come in to kind of take away all that time. And it's a perfect transaction for people who their time is worth more than the amount of time that they would spend doing this stuff themselves. And that's why our offer is so great for a certain kind of agent. Not everybody, obviously, but for a certain kind of agent, that's where we really help. And so again, if you're trying to be a content creator, then this video is not really for you because your goal is just to get as many views as possible, right? That's what Mr. Beast is. He's a content creator. That's why he makes content that is appealing to everybody. He's like, I'm gonna crash this like 10 Lamborghinis, like, going 90 miles per hour into a wall, right? Like, anybody wants to see that because it's appealing to the masses. But at the end of the day, if you did the same thing, you'd be like, okay, great. Well, then how now do you want to buy our home? And everyone's like, I'm not looking to buy a home. I'm not even in your market because that audience doesn't match up with what you're trying to accomplish here. Instead, if you want to be a real estate agent who's using content to grow their business, That is very different because now we're talking about how do we make sure that we don't just get a bunch of views or followers just for the sake, like, for the hell of it, but we actually want to get viewers and maybe followers. I'll talk about the misunderstanding about followers in a second, but we want to get at least people to view our content who are potential buyers or sellers in the market that we serve. And that's why our content needs to be very specific. And so when we talk about educating or entertainment, I always recommend that real estate agents, again, if you want to be a content creator, then don't listen to me. It's a different thing. If you want to spend all your time making videos, then that's a different profession. That's cool. There's nothing wrong with it. But if you want to be a real estate agent, you want to build the best real estate company possible, and you want to use social media as a marketing tool to help you grow that business, then what you don't want to do is make a bunch of stuff that just appeals to a bunch of people. Because what ends up happening when you have like a piece of content, and this is like a little video, right? We'll say this is like a piece of content going viral, or going through the stages of getting in front of more and more people. Viral just means you're getting a lot of views from a lot of people, right? But essentially, which is relative. But like what's going to happen is you put out a piece of content, right? This is how all algorithms work. They're going to serve it to the closest people in your inner sphere, right? These are the people like your mom or your friend or your brother, your sister, whatever, people who always consume your content when it comes out, right? And it's going to look at their retention rate. And this is specific to video, but the same premise applies to any kind of social media content. But ultimately, they're going to look at retention rate, which is like if you have a minute long video, how many people watch it, and what's the average amount of people who actually get served this content? What's the amount of the video they watch, right? Like, so for instance, if I have a minute long video and everybody watches for 30 seconds, or on average people are watching for 30 seconds long, that's a 50% retention rate, right? I put out this video and people will watch for 50% of it, right? And that can be good or bad. It doesn't really matter right now. But the point is that 50% is the retention rate. Whereas if I had like a 90% retention rate, meaning I put out a piece of content and then suddenly everyone who's watching, like on average, 90% of the video is being watched every single time it gets delivered to somebody, then this is going to go a lot more viral than this video, which just means that the algorithm will say, hey, when we send this video that this person posted to more people's feeds, people watch it, which means us as the social media company, we get them to stay on the platform longer, which means we can serve them more ads, which means that we are more valuable to the people who pay for ads on our platform, which means that we can charge more and we can make more money, right? Ultimately, the social media platforms want people to stay on the platform for as long as possible because you'll see more ads and they'll make more money. So if they see content that is getting a 90% retention rate and another person's content is getting a 50% retention rate, then they're going to obviously give more people that 90% video. And this is where you start to rank higher on people's feeds, right? We no longer have like an Instagram. Instagram used to be chronological, which is like you have like 100 people you follow, and you'd see all the people you follow in chronological order, like relative to when they posted. It's not that way anymore. You're going to get served content disproportionately based off of what people or what your consumer habits are. So when you put this content out here, if let's say you had a really high retention rate and you had a 90%, then suddenly you're going to go to a lot more people every single time, right? And then if that retention rate keeps up, they're just going to keep serving it to bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger audiences. Whereas if you have a really low retention rate, like a 5% retention rate or a 10% retention rate, and don't worry about the numbers, these are just random numbers here, but like they're going to serve it to a few people and be like, oh, people aren't really watching this very well. We're not really going to show it to more folks. And then that's where you only get, very limited amount of viewers, and ultimately you don't really go very far. So the reason I say this is because a content creator, like your job is just to entertain. So you actually have a distinct advantage algorithmically than somebody like a real estate agent who's looking to entertain, who's looking to educate necessarily. Because content creators, they just want to entertain, which means you can do anything you want as long as it's entertaining. Real estate agents, we have to educate on more boring topics, at least more boring than crashing a Lamborghini into a wall. And so we have to play by a different set of rules. Now, what's cool about this is that a content creator needs to get millions and millions and millions of views to make money. But what's really cool is that a real estate agent needs to have one great view to potentially become a client, right? And then if the average transaction value of like the market you're in is like 200,000 or 300,000 or whatever it might be, then suddenly, you're looking at a commission of tens of thousands of dollars for getting one view on your piece of content if it's the right view. And that's why quality is way more important than quantity when we're a real estate agent using social media in this way. Now, the question then is like, okay, cool. I understand that I don't need a billion views. I really just need these views to be as high quality as possible. In which case, awesome, we're off to the races. How do we do that? How do we make our content more important? How do we make our content more appealing to the right audience? So, how to get the right views. And ultimately, my favorite way to go about this is to make content that is boring to everybody else other than a potential buyer or seller. And this is great for two reasons. One, we ensure we're not getting in front of the wrong audience, which is good because our content will be served to people who are enjoying our content. Like if we have a video that like John, this guy John, he happens to watch the video the whole way through, he really likes it. Well, then guess who's going to get served a video next? People who are similar to John, right? People who have similar interests, similar consumer habits, because the algorithm knows, hey, John liked this video. So people who act and look and smell and breathe and whatever like John are also going to be likely to end up liking this video because they consume content in a similar way. So when you get content that's based around how to benefit buyers or sellers in your market specifically, only people who are potential buyers or sellers are going to get value out of that, which is good because then we're only going to get in front of more people like that who are buyers or sellers. And ultimately, that is how our content might not go viral, but it will get in front and be served to the right audience for us, where we will get fewer views, but they will be of higher quality. And that's really important for building your brand as well, because over time, that will increase and you will build a higher level of trust by serving the same kind of content that's valuable to the same audience over a long enough time horizon. So, how do we get the right views? You want to make boring content. Great example. Empty nesters living in Syracuse, New York. Here are 3 things you need to know about downsizing, or 3 opportunities about downsizing. Nobody is interested in that unless they are somebody downsizing who lives in that market, right? That is an example of a piece of content that's boring to everybody other than the target audience, right? So we want to make sure our content is boring content there. We want to have the right kind of friction. Because ultimately friction is something that makes it harder for someone to move forward, right? And in reality, in this case, it's just the content. The content, nobody's going to watch this content if it doesn't appeal to them. But if it does appeal to them and it does solve their specific problem, then that makes it a lot more likely to succeed. Now, this is also important because a lot of people say, well, hey, and I have this happen with like clients all the time. Let's say we're getting leads for them or we're getting views. And I always try to say, hey, how do we get in front of a very target audience? Like who's the ideal person that you want to get in front of? And they say, well, I'm okay with getting in front of like people like this, or I'm okay with getting people outside of my market, or I'm okay with like I just want to get everybody because I can then refer them to somebody else, or I can do this, or even like, well, yeah, I'll get in front of a bunch of like 14-year-olds, but like in 10 years maybe they'll be looking to buy a home. And what I always say is you can either be a jack of all trades or a master of one, right? Like it's really up to you. The problem is social media is so stupidly competitive now. And not just competitive with other agents. You have those content creators like Mr. Beast or whoever who are making content just designed to be entertaining. And we have to compete with that because a feed is linear. There's only one video at the top at a time. And so we have to not only beat and be more appealing to our specific audience than Mr. Beast at a time, or anybody else, or a famous celebrity, or a famous, sports person, or a famous TV company, whatever. All these people making content that's just purely entertaining. We have to have a competitive advantage, and our advantage is that they are entertaining them, but we are solving a problem for them, right? The problem is going to be that they need help with their real estate transaction, or they need help selling their home or buying a home or understanding a market they're looking to buy in. And we can help them with that because we are an expert. We are experts in the field that we are in, specifically in real estate. But if we try and be everything to everybody, we will be nothing to no one. So instead, be the super spot on, specific, amazing person in your niche or your market, and only talk about that, because that will help you get in front of the people who you can actually value, and don't make as many trends and things like that that are trying to appeal to everybody, when in reality then you're getting into a competitive marketplace that you will always be beaten, because you're not a content creator, you're a real estate agent, and that's a very different kind of field. So we need to make this content, and this is very different based off of the kind of niche that you're targeting. That's why I'm not going too far into specifics, but you need to understand what are the pain points. And by the way, a great way to start this off is just make like 10 videos that are just answering the most common questions that your clients have when you start working with them. Like, I'm sure you have things that clients say that are like, oh, I heard this, this, this. And you're like, actually, here's what you need to know about that. Or actually, that's a misunderstanding. Here's this thing. Or actually, you're totally right. And on top of that, here are more things you might not know about buying or selling a house in, Jacksonville, Tennessee, right? Whatever. Or Jacksonville, Florida. Um, those things will help you educate and provide that value to your audience, and you can make videos on those, because you know that the right kind of people, the people you're trying to get in front of, buyers or sellers, in the form of, you've already helped a lot of these people, so you know that the right kind of people will have those similar questions. Those are great videos to start off with, answering those questions that people probably don't even know that they have, but you do, because you work with those kind of people every single day. Now, I also want to talk about being platform agnostic, because at the end of the day, every agent I talk to thinks, wow, Facebook's dead, huh? Or Instagram's dead, huh? Or TikTok is really booming, huh? Or YouTube is really the only place that you can build a business, because I saw this one person do it this one time and they said that one time. At the end of the day, these platforms are just gathering places for people. That's all they are. And if you look at the fact that like Facebook has like 300 million plus monthly active users in the US, Instagram has something close beyond that or behind that. I think YouTube's like number 2. Um, all these platforms, I mean, yeah, you could rank them in terms of monthly active users, which Facebook is on top for, which is funny because everyone thinks it's dead, which is just so not true. But at the end of the day, it's like we're talking about hundreds of millions of people. Like, that's almost just the population of the US right there, right? Like, your audience is on one of these platforms, likely all of them, or likely most of them. So you want to be platform agnostic and make your content about your audience that you're targeting, about the buyer or seller in your market who needs help with these things, who doesn't understand X, Y, and Z, who you could be that helpful person for them. And just post it to all of the platforms. And that's a huge reason why I really like short form content. So vertical short form content. It's called YouTube Shorts or TikTok videos or Reels if it's on Facebook or Instagram. But that content can go everywhere. You can also post that on X. You can post that on LinkedIn as well. And so if you post short form video content, you don't have to reformat it, right? You don't have to make it like X wide by whatever tall. You can just make a vertical video, which is, not that it's important, but 1920 tall by 1080 wide, that will go to all of the major platforms, that will work on all of the major platforms. So don't care so much about the platform and overthink it and try and like game the system. Say, any one of these platforms could have a buyer or seller on it, so I'm just going to show up on all of them, and I'm going to make a piece of content that's valuable for the right kind of person, and I'll just post it everywhere. Because why not? It's not like if we get 30 views on a video on Instagram and 500 views on a video on Facebook, it's not like we're like, maybe we should stop posting to Instagram. Because at the end of the day, those 30 people, one of them might be a buyer or seller that you might end up working with. Like, we don't want to forsake that, because it doesn't really take us at a time to post to more platforms. We make the content for the audience, we post it to all the platforms, because it doesn't matter what platform's bigger for us. It just matters that it has the people who are people that we can help, and all of these platforms potentially have the right kinds of buyers or sellers for your market that you would benefit from working with. So Be platform agnostic. Don't try to game the system. Don't make it more complicated than it is. Every view is valuable for you because we're going after the right kind of views, not just trying to go viral and have a ton of followers for no reason. Now, and by the way, side note on that, followers are helpful, but not for the reason you think. Followers do not guarantee views. They definitely don't guarantee clients. They don't guarantee leads. They don't guarantee anything other than you'll have a bigger following. Now, having a bigger following in and of itself is beneficial, right? So if you have a lot of followers, you're not guaranteed to have them view your content every single time you post. Like if you have, a million followers and you post terrible content, you're gonna get like no views. Happens all the time. You can just go and find pages that are like that. You know, um, but what it does do is it differentiates you. It does give you some validity. We live in a world where people will judge and they will assume that you are more valid and more trustworthy and more authentic of a brand if you have more following. It's kind of crazy. That's the world that we live in. So if you want to use followers to get a bigger advantage in your competitive marketplace, where there's 1,000 agents serving the exact same people with the exact same price point and doing the exact same thing for them, then yes, you can get a stronger following, and that will help you stand out around the rest of people. And by the way, too, I've been working in social media for years, and I've been preaching the fact that followers do not help you get more views, and I will tell that to people. They will understand it, and then the next time I talk to them, they'll say like, "Oh, but if I get more followers, I'll get more views," right? And so I have tried to tell people oftentimes that that's not the case. It's not. It's no longer like that. It used to be. It's no longer like that. But for whatever reason, and gurus out there who preach different things, um, for whatever reason, people will not believe that. The nice thing about that is that if you have a following of 10,000, 20,000 people on social media, it is a competitive advantage to your over your marketplace, and especially with sellers, because then you can say, hey, I got 20,000 followers, like, we can post this stuff out to my page that has 20,000 followers, right? And then you're not guaranteeing anything about views, but you're just saying, hey, I have 20,000 followers, in this case you do, and you're going to post it on your page, their listing, to that page which has 20,000 followers. Like, you're being completely honest. You're being completely trustworthy. And you can even say that doesn't mean you're going to get 20,000 views necessarily, but it's a page with a lot of followers. And they will say, wow, that's hugely valuable. That's so cool. I love that. And that's a competitive advantage. So you want to be platform agnostic, and followers can help, but not in the way that you think. And then lastly is, of course, avoid trendy distractions. You want this content that builds trust. And how do you actually end up building trust? Well, first and foremost, you don't make a video highlighting some crazy property doing with a drone doing some flips and all that stuff. That's going to show people, wow, this is a really cool property, and they'll never remember your name. Instead, make your content like this, talking head style content, talking directly to the audience, saying, hey, I'm your local realtor here. I want to make this video because a client of mine had this issue, and I thought maybe this could be helpful to more people who are looking to buy or sell in this market. Hey, I'm this person. I notice a lot of times when I talk with new people, like brand new homeowners or first time home buyers, that they often have these misunderstandings, and I want to help to illustrate how to understand these things so that you don't run into the same problem. It sounds so simple, but people have a lot of fear when they're buying a house because it's a big financial decision. You can alleviate that fear by providing information and citing your sources and providing proof and talking about your past experiences that show how you fix those things. And you can continually do that over and over and over and over again. And to the people who see your content, eventually you are positioning yourself as a problem solver. You're positioning yourself as every time you show up on their feed, they're going to learn something new or understand something that they could avoid that makes the home buying or selling process harder, or something that they should do to make the home buying or selling process easier. And you are connecting, you are making a connection between you and success in real estate. And that is ultimately how you brand yourself, by associating you with successful real estate, and making the process easier, and simplifying things and being easy to work with and being likable and all of that stuff. And that is making your brand more powerful, so that ultimately when somebody looks to buy or sell a home, they're going to want somebody that they know, like, and trust, and like they've been watching your content for the past 10 months, because we all know people start looking for houses 10 months at least before they actually are ready to buy. And that's great because then your content will be appealing for them. You can build up a relationship with them. And it sounds funny because it's a one-sided relationship. You might not know that they've seen every single video of yours. But then you go on there and they're like, hey, I love that stuff. By the way, that video you posted last month of your dog, I saw that they were sick. I'm so sorry. I hope they're better. And you're actually going to have an experience if you stick with this and do this consistently where you're like, wow, that's actually a little creepy. It's really weird that these strangers I don't know actually know a lot about me and have seen my face 100 times, and I am just meeting them for the first time. That's a weird dynamic. It's kind of crazy, but that is what actually ends up happening if you stay consistent. The thing is, if you drop off after 3 months, then you're just gonna reset again in 2 months later when you decide you want to get back into it. So that's why consistency is so important because it's not doing it one time that builds a brand. It's consistently doing it over and over and over and over and over again that eventually you will be seen as real estate success to your viewers who have built a relationship with you. And so lastly here, we want to talk about section 3. If I can actually spell, that would be super helpful. And if this will erase. Sometimes remember when I said that technology doesn't always work? This is a perfect example. So section 3, this is where your strategy matters. So, purpose beyond your leads. As I mentioned before, you need to understand that social media is highly beneficial in many ways. And yes, you can build leads. I have acquired clients just directly commenting on one of my social media posts and said, this is super cool. And I said, hey, cool, let's talk. And then we ended up working together. So yes, you can build a system that generates you leads on social media. And obviously ads are a great way to get leads on social media. But there's a lot of benefit beyond simply that. What social media can really help you do is, yes, you can get more leads. You can also nurture your existing leads. So think about this. Instead of just constantly having to text your database, what if you just showed up on their feed every once in a while? Like, that's a great way to nurture your list. And it's a really highly leveraged activity because instead of sending individual messages, nothing wrong with that. There's a place for that. It just takes a lot of time. Whereas if you can post some content that reminds people, oh yeah, this person, John, is really great at this thing and they're super helpful and educational. I got to remember to call them when I'm ready to buy or sell, right? But also what's really cool, and people don't talk about this enough, and I've just recently started to do it because I've seen the benefits of it, but you can nurture referrals. And specifically, and I don't know if I'm gonna spell this right, referees. There's no way I spelled that right. And it's okay because the correction thing made this way too difficult to understand anyway. So you can nurture not only the people who you are hoping to work with in the future, but you can also nurture people that you have worked with in the past. And that's great because yes, obviously they might buy or sell a home in like 10 years or whatever that might be. But more importantly, people are more likely to refer you if you are top of mind. They're more likely to refer you if you are not only top of mind, but you are reminding them that you're valuable, that you're helpful. It's very funny because we would think, well, I helped them buy the home of their dreams. They're obviously going to refer me, right? Because I had a great experience. That's not always true. People are weird as hell. People will not do something just because logically it would have made sense to, because you are a lot less important to them as they are to you. And so if you are constantly showing up and providing value, even to people after you've already helped them buy or sell a home, who shouldn't be interested in this, but they might be, and you're still interesting to them because they have a relationship with you, you help them, and you'll show up on their feed. And by doing that, you are going to elevate the chances that they refer you. So not only is social media doing something that helps you get more leads, it's helping you build trust with people by providing a lot of value and building your brand to associate yourself with real estate success, which is a huge competitive advantage over other people in your market who are just bombarding people with like, are you ready to buy a home? Are you ready to buy a home? Are you ready to buy a home? Like, damn, nobody wants to respond to that. But you're also nurturing your referrals so that you are more likely to get referrals from previous clients because you're showing up consistently and you're staying top of mind even to people you've already served who are not going to buy or sell anytime soon, most likely. So social has a million different ways that it can help you beyond just lead generation. Obviously, the no like trust factor is massive because you're building a relationship with people by associating yourself over time and getting people past the no like and trust that's needed for them to work with you, to trust you with the biggest transaction of their life. Um, Number three, too, we also want to focus on long term relationships. We want to engage people, not just who are ready to buy or sell right now. And so the problem with what happens a lot of times is that if we look at leads, people who are looking to buy or sell now, or people who are looking to buy soon, right? There are probably, I don't know, a rough number. I mean, real estate agents probably know this more, but like at any given time, how many people are like right ready to buy or sell at this moment? They are ready to move forward. They are ready to work with an agent. They don't already have an agent. They don't have a friend or family member who they're planning on working with as their agent. How many people are there? That's a very small audience, and it's smaller if you have a smaller market, obviously. That's a very niche audience. And what's really funny is that a small audience, and oh my God, every single real estate agent who has ever lived or breathed in your freaking market, they're all going to be descending on this one singular type of lead every single night and day that that person is in existence. They freaking fill out one thing on Zillow, and it is like the gates of hell have opened for this person. They're going to get 45 calls in like the first 3 days, and they're going to be like, oh my God, I don't want to work with any agent ever. I really don't. Because it is just an insane kind of relationship. It's basically an attractive person walking into a bar and then 50,000 people of the other sex walking in and saying, hey, would you like to marry me right now? Hey, don't talk to this other guy. I want to marry you right now. Here's the ring. Here's the deed on our property. Here's what we're going to name our children. It's insane when you think about doing business that way. Whereas people who are looking to buy or sell their home in the near future, like within maybe the next year or so, there's a lot more people who fit under that umbrella who you could actually help. And guess what's really cool about this? There are a lot fewer agents taking the time and effort out of their day to actually build a relationship with these people because they're not warm enough. They're not ready to go. I only want to talk to people who are serious, right? And I get that. There's a place for that. It's just insanely competitive. So if you can build a relationship with people who are at the early stages, you have a massive competitive advantage. You are framing yourself as somebody who's valuable, not someone who's just got commission breath, which is a great term from Alex Hormozy, which I think is amazing. And not just trying to, do whatever it takes to get them to pay you a commission, right? It's a much better way of building a relationship. Um, Now, the last thing I want to talk about with social media here is data. Obviously, we know that social media provides amazing data that would have cost hundreds of thousands of dollars, 20 years ago. Marketing companies would charge an insane amount of money to provide a business that small businesses wouldn't even be able to have access to because it was so expensive, about consumer habits and what people are interested in, all this stuff. We get this data for free now. It's just on our phone whenever we want it for free. Easy, right? Easy to track. Just go into the analytics or the insights tab of any social media app. That's not for this video, but it's very easy to do. We have a ton of data available to us. You should use that data. If you're posting consistently, then you are getting an ample amount of data, a sufficient enough test size, where you can start to say, hey, people really respond well. This video got way more reach, way more views than this video did. And important, as long as those videos are all very geared towards just buyers or sellers. Remember, boring to everybody other than a buyer or seller in your market, or somebody interested in buying or selling in your market, then we know that relative to your audience that we're already targeting, some people found this more helpful, more interesting, worth watching more than other videos. If you post 10 videos, one will be the best and one will be the worst. And so what you can do is use that data, and you can even just look and just see what views it did. But you can use that data to say, hey, let's stop talking about the thing that did poorly and let's start talking more about the thing that did really well. And that way we start to catapult ourselves by making more and more content that's better and less content that's worse. And it sounds so dumb when you put it in that kind of perspective, but it's amazing who just doesn't do this, who just talks about whatever they want at any moment, really inconsistently, saw another real estate agent do this thing, so they decided to copy it, even though they didn't even look at how well it performed for them, and it actually could do much better, or that piece of content could do much worse than something that they're actually currently doing now. But we don't think about that because we just think this other person's doing it, so I need to do it. It's insane. But we have this data available to us. So we need to understand that that is a really powerful thing at our disposal. But one really important caveat about data. If you're building a brand on social media and you're using social media to associate yourself with real estate success in the eyes of your target avatars, right? If that's what we're doing on social media, it's not going to be perfectly trackable. Not everything in marketing is perfectly trackable. Because at the end of the day, if we saw, we sent out an email, let's say, and then somebody responded and became a lead, and then ultimately became a client, we would say, wow, I sent this email, they became a lead, they closed. Email is amazing, and I want to just do more and more like that. I'm going to stop focusing as much on other things like social media and instead just focus on email. And even if you don't consciously say that, we only have so much time in the day. We only have so much attention that we can give. So if you start focusing on more on one thing, you are going to take attention away from something else. You might not admit it or might not realize it, but that will automatically happen. But here's the funny thing. This doesn't live in a vacuum, right? This email maybe not lived in a vacuum. It's not like it's the first email you ever sent. It's not like it's the first time you've ever put out something to a potential audience, right? In reality, this social media or this post right here or this email, this might be reliant on the fact that this person who became a lead and ultimately closed, they may have seen 10 of your videos before they were even ready. They may have actually seen even 15 of your videos before eventually they wanted to respond to the or open up the email because you've built enough trust here and enough of a relationship that they said, oh, okay, well, the videos were helpful. Maybe I'll open the email. And then ultimately became a lead and became a client. But we don't know that unless we ask. So some of my best clients have done a really great job of asking people, hey, have you seen our Instagram page? Or like, were there some videos there that helped you kind of get to the stage where you're ready to buy or sell? Or hey, which of my social media posts have you seen? Or do you follow us on Facebook or Instagram? Do you like the videos up there? If you don't ask your audience, there is no way to know if videos that you're put up on your organic social media actually contributed to them becoming a lead and a client unless they're the very few percentage that just simply saw the video and responded right there, hey, I want to work with you, right? Which does happen, but it happens way less frequently, and it doesn't show the overall benefit of building a brand on social media. If you build a brand for 10 years and suddenly you notice that your lead generation has a higher conversion rate, your emails have a higher open rate, you're getting more natural phone calls to your business. If you're not conscious of the fact that that's probably benefiting from the fact that you've spent time and effort building a brand, then you won't value the efforts that got you there. And then what happens a lot of time is you will take your foot off the gas of the stuff that actually got you to that point because you don't think it's actually helping you because you just didn't see or didn't look hard enough to understand that building a brand, establishing trust is the best asset possible for your audience. If you have 1 million people in your database, but none of them know, like, or trust you, it's not really a helpful database. But instead, if you have 100 people in your database who all really value you, they all think you're amazing, they think that you're super helpful, and they want to work with you, that's worth way more than the alternative, than having a big audience that has no relationship with you. So you need to understand that data is super helpful, but unless we actually really ask our audience that how their relationship, how their journey, their customer journey, what it looked like and what got them there, then we won't know for sure. And even asking them isn't always a perfect representation, but it's much better than just never looking, never even digging deeper, and then making assumptions, which could end up ruining any good work that you're doing. So I hope this is helpful, guys, and I'll see you on the next video.